Well, good evening, Humke. Thanks for joining us tonight. You can see I have Mrs. Sprain and myself here, and we thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few moments with you. First of all, just in addition to say thanks, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about our purpose for tonight, and that is to spend time as listening to you and your questions and concerns you have regarding the start of the new school year. And what I'm hoping to do would probably take the next 10 minutes or so and just spend some time answering your questions and whatever that looks like. Know that you can take your questions and post them here, and I'll look for them online as you feed them. I have Mrs. Sprain here helping me in case I miss anything, and she's got a few questions probably to help make it more interesting and ask questions along the way. So our goal is really to just spend time listening to you to see what questions you have regarding all the challenges we're facing as a community right now as we look forward to the start of the next school year. So with that being said, I'm giving you the opportunity to fire off some questions. You can put them on in the comment section. I'm going to look for them to scroll or anything that comes in right now. I'll just wait for that for a few minutes. In the meantime, right now, Mrs. Sprain, as a parent, community member, or teacher, you're thinking about it from your end. What questions would you have as a mom or a parent about the start of the school year and what that looks like and all that?
Yeah, good question. Well, I know that you and the rest of the administrators have been working very hard to create plans, and I'm just wondering, what are some of the things that you have thought through? Obviously, you're not going to be able to think of everything right now, but what are some of the things that you've thought through and plan to have in place for safety regarding the beginning of the school year?
Thanks for asking. So the question is, what have we done and what has been thought and figured out? Well, last week, just as a matter of information, and posted on our Humke Elementary Facebook page is a video of Mr. Whitmore and Mr. Grill having a conversation about what that looks like. My goal is not really to spend time going back over everything that they've already done, but I will highlight some things that they've talked about. Right now, as a school district, we've taken measures to prepare, I'll call it a tiered approach, where we have a green, a yellow, and a red approach to what school looks like. There's the normal, which is what we had prior to the pandemic. The green now is, okay, we're in this pandemic, and the yellow's in the pandemic, and so is the red. And what we're looking to do is we will move between these three tiers until the pandemic is no more. And we are developing a protocol that allows us to do that. We're doing that in cooperation with Wood County Health and other community agencies to make sure that ultimately is keeping your kids safe. And with that being said, one of the things that we always want to do is make sure that first and foremost that we are taking care of your children and we are keeping them safe. So as stated, we have these tiers. And each one of these tiers, we've worked to align our buildings as a district so there's consistency between the high school, the middle school, and the elementary. So there's consistency of language and just meaning. So we spent a lot of time doing that. Now that we've established that, we need to spend time figuring out what it looks like in our building, specifically related to what it looks like in classroom practices in common areas, and each one of our buildings in the district are doing that. So that's from the big vision, or I guess not the big vision, the big challenge that we've been facing on right now. So each one of the buildings has been doing that, and we focused around safety and then teaching and learning. And we've had two school groups doing that. So it's been a combination of teachers throughout the district spending time learning about what that planning what that will be done and for safety and for teaching and learning right now. And in our building right now, we're taking the measures to make that personal here in Humke. So that's a big overview of what it looks like.
Like specifically in our classrooms, what have you done to take measures? Is that something that Mr. Whitmore discussed already, or is that something that you can specifically identify? I'm thinking of some of the things that have been purchased, or some of the plans that you have in place for hallways, things like that, maybe in the cafeteria, lunches? What does that look like?
Okay. Well, thanks for asking that question. As I indicated right now, the red, well, there's green, yellow, and red. And I'm going to talk to a lot of things that are in the green right now. And this is where I think we'll start the school year out, is in the green level. And a lot of the measures that we're planning for the green will also occur in the yellow, with maybe some tweaks when we go to the yellow. But if we are in the red, that's when we won't be at school, and we'll be doing some learning at home. So what I'm going to reference is the fact is right now is this is what it looks like when we are at school and in the green. So in terms of some practices right now, what we're doing right now is first and foremost, we want to keep your kids safe. And so the things that we're doing to keep kids safe here in the building, practicing all the things that you hear in the news about, doing our best to create social distancing, working on sanitizing, keeping things clean, and we're creating protocols for that happen, and then also wearing face masks. So I think really just kind of diving into all those three a little bit right now and talking about that. So specifically right now, one of the things that we're working on is I visited with members of our building team today, and then also of our district team regarding some safety protocols that we're putting into place. We haven't finalized what it'll look like for screening as kids come into the building, but there'll be a process where we'll be checking temperature and running through a process to make sure kids are safe and healthy as they come into the building.
Okay.
And then from that, a lot of the other routines are very structured in an elementary building, but we're creating practices within those so that there's social distancing as much as possible, and then also, I'll say, sanitizing practices. Like as a kid comes into the building, what I envision right now, we haven't finalized all these processes, but the child will have his or her temperature taken, and a couple other things that we're still determining right now, doing something to sanitize their hands, and then going into, at the start of the day, they eat breakfast, and when they get into the lunchroom, to eat breakfast, there'll be a social distancing where we're keeping the lunchroom at half capacity, allowing for more kids to eat in the lunchroom, but at a greater distance apart from one another. And based on what we figured right now, we'll be able to handle our breakfast routine as normal. But we're anticipating also at this point right now, we always tell the kids, eat first, then go outside. So what we're going to be doing, or go play. But this year, just to help with the social distancing, our goal is to get more kids outside at the start of the school day. That's going to be a little bit trickier. We do have a partnership with the YMCA, and they're going to be helping us with that, and we're still mapping out those plans. But that's a little bit about the start of the day and what that would look like.
I see that we have a question here from Bethany Wolf.
Yeah.
It says, and unfortunately I can't see it all. Can I press
It's a little bit
that?
of a glare. Here, yeah, yep, here we
Okay.
go. It says, Mrs. Wolf's asked, plan for asymptomatic or...
Pre-symptomatic kids and the staff who will be COVID positive but no outward symptoms. What happens with school if a positive case is in the school? Staff, students, or family members?
Good question.
How will that affect our tier level?
Good question. And those metrics that are being analyzed right now, how to respond with that, that's still being developed. So I don't have an answer for that one right now, but we're working on that. But if we come into a situation where a child is identified, they come in, or a teacher. But I'm going to say right now, going back to that screening process where they come in, we're developing a protocol where that child would go to the office, go to an isolation room, and then be immediately sent home. And that piece we do have in place, and we're all the nuts and bolts specifically about that is still being worked on. Asymptomatic, that's a good question for those who don't know what that means. Essentially, it's like, we don't know that you don't look like you're sick, or maybe you don't have all the symptoms, but you're carrying the virus. And that's why we're taking a lot of measures to make sure that we're being safe. And one of the things I haven't alluded to is a big question that I've been asked is, so what's school going to look like? Are kids going to be wearing masks? And that's a good question. And one of the things that we developed in our green tier as a district, students are encouraged to wear masks. Well, as we met today as a building team right now, we talked about wearing masks. Well, you can't really teach encourage to wear a mask. You're either wearing them or you're not. As a staff, we're wearing masks. We're going to be wearing masks every day. And so we're committed to a culture of wearing masks. And we know kids are going to suck on them and do other things that are inappropriate and whatever. But we just look at it as one more thing that we get to do to keep kids safe. And so we are going to have a culture of where we wear masks for the purpose of keeping each other safe. And so by doing that, I believe that'll help mitigate the potential from kids passing on viruses when they are asymptomatic. And granted, nothing is all foolproof, but we're going to take measures again, like I said, social distancing, sanitizing, and wearing masks to keep each other safe, because we know by bringing kids into the building, there will be a strong potential for them to commingle and spread the virus. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. What happens is we have a system that's being developed right now by health officials and school officials to keep an eye on what the community's looking like, and we could easily go from green to red like that and close school down based on the things that are coming in right now.
Okay, so
We got a couple of questions. Kristen, why don't you read those?
yeah, I'm going to start with Bobby Doucette. She had said, will parents of children that have allergies and asthma be called if their child is coughing? Her child coughs most of the year. So they're concerned that this is something that they do because of a condition that they have. And it is a symptom of COVID, but not necessarily, but in their case, is a typical result of what
Sure.
they have.
So this child right now, he's a potential just because he coughs a lot. Does that mean he has that? You know, I guess number one, first and foremost, we are going to partner with our parents to make sure that our kids stay safe. And we will be in contact and we'll be familiar with, and we know the importance of the role of keeping our kids safe, and that relies on a strong partnership with all our parents. And the nice thing about Humke that we have is a really strong community relationship between home and school and our teacher and the parents, and also our office staff who are monitoring that. So just what I see is really, hey, just so you know, this situation is, those are communications that we need to have with one another to make sure that we're just really taking care of each other and being responsible partners in taking care of the child we've been entrusted with taking care of. So in terms of having that communication, we're going to do everything we can to keep you informed, and we hope that you would do that for us too. And we'll be sensitive to all medical needs that children have.
So there's a concern when you said that we are going to, will children be mandated to wear masks? I know as a kindergarten teacher that seems difficult for, children who may be sensitive to things on their face, even
Right.
types of clothing on their body, and now to have it on their face. Is there options for
Absolutely.
them to wear shields, or can they, what if it doesn't work for them? What if that becomes
Absolutely.
more of a distraction to their
We
learning?
know, that's a good point. We have children who struggle, I'll just call it sensory challenges or whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough to put every kid in the same box and expect the same expectations.
Yes.
And we're going to be sensitive to that. And that's where, I guess, as I look at it right now, and I've had a conversation with some of our teachers about this, if you know what, this student right now is struggling right now for whatever reason to wear the mask, okay, hey, we can see that you're having a hard time right now. We are, this is where it's ultimately like any behavior, pick your battles. Pick your battles. Ultimately our goal is to keep you safe and everyone else safe. And right now, sometimes that causes to be essentially just understanding to that kid in that situation right now. So we're not going to hold that over them, be manipulative or punitive in that situation. We're going to meet them where they're at and love them where they're at.
Okay. So, will gym, music, and like FIAD or art classes, will those still be occurring in the class or during the school day?
Yes, we're still going to have, we call those the encores, and the encores are gym, music, art, and then we have a library rotation. So the kids go to those classes once every 4 days, and what happens is when they do go to gym, if they're outside, they will not be expected to wear a mask. If they're on the playground, they will not be expected to wear a mask. And we've developed some protocols that we're still taking shape on wearing masks right now. They're going to go to those classes. Just preventing, one of the things we're doing is to help create it so there's a staggering, because once in a while, like at 2 o'clock, there is 150 kids in the hallway because they're transitioning to Encore. So what we're doing is we're being very strategic and making it so that presence, we're kind of stretching out that time right now. Just so the kids aren't, I guess, compacted in the Encore areas all at once. But in the green tier right now, all the kids are going to be going from their classroom to the Encore classes. And then what we're going to do is they're going to actually be leaving in a staggered way, and they're going to be leaving a little bit early. And one of the practices we have right now is, we haven't fully developed right now, but a practice where the kids and the teacher are going to be making sure everything is sanitized, and then there's a break and a space, and then the next group of kids come in. And now that's what it looks like on the green tier. Yellow tier, if we move to that as a building, then we would have encores in the classroom, except for gym, where we could still just go outside, or socially distance in the gym, where you can't really do gym in the classroom very well. But it's our goal to have encores in the green tier, in their classrooms, in the Encore classrooms, I should say. In the yellow tier, they would occur in their homeroom classrooms.
Well, can you talk a little bit about, so if we do go to red tier, what types of things will we have in place regarding learning?
That's an excellent question. Thanks for asking that. I know we spent a lot of time asking about safety, and we haven't finalized this yet. Tomorrow morning we are meeting as a school team, talking about what teaching and learning looks like in our building when and if we go to the red tier. Last year, as you know, we did a lot of learning packets. Learning packets are good. At the end of that, remember that last week I said, hey, we're going to spend some time learning about some stuff for next year. And we ended school a few days early. The staff spent some time learning a thing called Seesaw. And that's a communication tool where students are able to go on the computer and do some things directly, so they don't have to. One of the things we had with Parent Square is, parents, here's the message that your child needs to know, and now give it to your teacher. What we're looking to do is, through Seesaw, here's this electronic platform in which we can give kids work directly, and parents can see what's going on, but then kids have learned how to use Seesaw, and they have the means to do that. Now, we're still new at that. We're not perfect as a staff, but we're learning that, and that's an electronic platform to give, essentially take some things off of parents' plate, because we know how busy they are, and it puts some responsibility in the classroom.
Yeah, the great thing about Seesaw is that we have been trained in it already, and we're ready to start using it in our classrooms at the beginning of the year, so that the students are familiar with it immediately, and we'll be using it during our school day, so that it becomes part of our everyday learning. And then if we do have to go virtual, the children will be very familiar with how to use that particular platform in different subject areas to continue their learning.
Yeah. So, in looking at that right now, so again, green, yellow, red. Red is where I'm not going to call it virtual, that's more of a remote learning right now. So what happens is that practice that we talked about with Seesaw. Seesaw is something we're going to be doing every day in the classroom. It's a part of our reading workshop process. So kids come in. What I envision right now is, okay, students, you get out your electronic device, look at it right there. These are the things you're working on. And then we look to expand that over time. So that's really going to be part of our new learning process, whether we're in what color, green, yellow, red, or no color at all. But that gives us an opportunity for kids to develop that responsible independence and self-direction. So that's part of it. I'm also thinking we haven't finalized what that learning packet will look like right now, and that's something our building team has to talk more about.
Are we, as a school district, supplying students with masks, or is that going to be the parents' responsibility?
Great question, thanks. We've been hopping all over the place, so we'll hop back to masks right now. We've, thanks to, gosh, I can't think.
Crayola, I think.
Well, Crayola and I think it was Encourage, I forgot now. Long story short, though, thanks to members of our community, they put in for a grant. Each student is going to be supplied with 5 masks. And the masks are, you will not have to supply them, parents. You are more than welcome to supply a mask. What it's going to look like right now, and after a meeting with our building team today, what we envision is right now, students are going to wear their masks at school. And then what happens is, we've kind of talked about this, they're going to wear, pretty much the whole day. If they go outside, they're not going to wear it. Or if they're exerting themselves and they're running a lot, like in gym, there's enough social distancing there that they're not going to wear at that moment. But for the most part, they are going to be wearing their masks throughout the day. And if you want to bring your own mask, you're welcome to do that, because we know some masks are like, hey, this one fits me perfect. I really like this one. Great. The ones that we get here, we will supply. And what we're going to do is have a cleaning process that we haven't totally figured out yet. But what's going to happen is the masks, at the end of the day, or at some point, the masks are going to be put in essentially a laundry basket for that class, a laundry bag. And then there's going to be a cleaning process where we wash them and then return them. And their teachers, one of the things our team decided to is to have each kid's initials on the bag. So in other words, here's Mrs. Sprain's bag full of masks, and inside it all her students' masks that have their student initials on it. And then what happens is the kids then keep getting their own mask back. It's been washed, it's been sanitized, but it's personal. So we just want to make sure that people get their mask back too. So that's what that's looking like.
So will each child really just be getting one mask that will be washed? 5 masks. Okay, good. So then they'll be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we haven't totally figured out what that routine will look like, and that's something we'll just have to work on yet. But I envision masks. I mean, that's something we've kind of have to talk about as more as a team yet, and the frequency of which those will be washed. But mask will be provided, and of course, you can provide your own mask.
So, as a parent, I know that I enjoyed walking my child, especially my young kindergartner, down to their class in the first week or so. If a parent is willing to wear a mask, will they be allowed to enter the school, or have you come up with?
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, oh, that breaks my heart, because number one, I know right now when we're in the green tier, in any tier of the yellow or the red, right now we don't have visitors or mentors or parent guests right now
Allowed.
and allowed in the building, and that's really hard. Because I know socially, emotionally right now how important it is to be in that. So when school's in session, we are going to not allow visitors, and I hate saying that, but right now we're trying to take measures to keep everyone safe, and that was the decision that we made as a district committee, is to eliminate the visitors' presence in and that includes guests like our parents, and that's tough.
That is hard. That is hard.
Now, know this: we are planning on having an open house in August, and that's going to be a scheduled event where you come in, and that'll be tremendously important in terms of making that connection, and I want to give a plug for that. I'm going to look at my calendar right now. Wednesday, August 26th, know that it's a long ways away, but just put a star in your calendars. That's when is it August 26th or August? I'd have to check now, but one of those 2 days, those 3 days right now, we'll let you know later in August when we officially start coming back to school. But what'll end up happening is schedule with your teacher a time to come in and do open house, and that'll be so important, and we ask you to bring your kids with that too, and just make that connection. You will only be allowed to bring that one child too during that time, because we just really want to minimize the presence again to keep everybody safe.
Now what about buses? Are kids going to be wearing masks on buses? If they're going to be leaving their school masks at school, how will they be getting to and from school, and will they be wearing masks on buses?
We don't have an answer for that right now. Brian Grill, who's our People Services Director, is leading our district team. He's meeting with Safeway tomorrow, or Wednesday, I forgot. But he is going to talk with them, and we're working on a plan, because essentially, again, that mask, kids are going to be keeping here at school. We do not, at this time right now, we're saying we're not sending the masks home, because they need them here every day. So what does it look like when we get on the bus? Again, this has not been finalized, but we are working through a process where we're not sure how many kids are going to be on the bus right now, but we want to minimize our presence there. We're envisioning right now that we're having one student per seat, unless it's like a brother and sister sitting together, which would be okay. But otherwise, the plan is to minimize our presence on the bus as much as possible and keep those numbers down. We haven't made a decision on whether students are wearing masks on the bus.
Okay. Jumping back to virtual learning. You know, green tier students are at school. If the school goes to yellow, and there are parents now hesitant to send their school or their child to school, can they choose a virtual platform to learn from, like we would in red? Like they're just hesitant to, will they be provided?
Sure. You know, at that point right now, and that's where it gets to be real tricky, you know. I guess right now, all of a sudden, it's like, hey, Humke went to yellow. I'm a little nervous about sending my kid to school. Exactly. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. I get that. I don't know if I want... You can, you know, at this point, first and foremost, your safety and well-being is priority number one. Okay? If you don't send your kid because you're anxious about that, I understand that, and you do not need to send your kid. I mean, I get that. So what will learning look like? That's something, hey, I want to keep my kid home now, that's something that we need to talk about more as a staff, and I think that's a very fluid situation, what that looks like. And we have to figure that out. In my mind, what I'm envisioning right now, Mrs. Sprain, okay, you have her as a teacher. I think there's enough partnership there. We really want to work on a partnership in there and kind of keep the ball rolling. That's what's in the back of my mind, but we as a staff kind of have to work that out and let that figure out. As a side note, some people are saying, hey, can we just do virtual the whole year? Okay. We actually have a virtual school in our district. It's called the Wise Academy. The good news is it does a really nice job. The bad news is they were full last year. They reached their capacity. And right now it's grown so fast over the last few years we can't keep up with it. At the same time, we say as a building right now, our teaching and learning team in the building are looking at, okay, if we have a whole bunch of parents who want to do learning at home because I'm a stay-at-home mom, I just want to keep my kid home right now for the next period of time, and we don't know what that is, we would work with you to figure out what that would look like too. I have had some parents reach out to me and say, yeah, I'm not sure we want to come this year, and I'm like, I understand, and we're working on exploring a curriculum that's a little bit more out of the box, something that gives parents the support they need And then in terms of what that looks like for members of the Humke family teaching team, supporting families, that's all being worked out yet, and right now we don't have anything solidified in that. It's in the back of our mind what it would look like, but we don't have that mapped out yet.
Okay. So a question was raised. It is planned to have a 5-day school week each week, unless for some reason there's a scheduled
Yes. Yeah.
day off.
Yeah. One of the things that we've learned from this experience already right now, the middle school and the high school, they're looking at an alternative where the kids will be doing some more, I'll say, a greater presence of being online. Some days present, some days not present. I'm not going to speak to their plan because I don't want to misspeak, but they will have a stronger virtual presence in the other two buildings. We are working to develop a stronger virtual presence for ourselves compared to last spring, but we know this. Little kids, we don't want to have so much time on the screen. It's just, the state of Wisconsin, the Department of Public Instruction, they recommend a couple of hours. Kids need more than 2 hours of learning, and that shouldn't all be done in front of a screen. So what we're trying to do is find that partnership of how much is electronic, how much is physical, and how much they can do at home should we be in that red situation. So right now we're looking to still kind of figure out what it's going to look like for being in the red, when that would look like. And in my mind, I'm thinking we're still going to have some type of learning packets because kids need something, but at the same time, our goal is to have kids here 5 days a week in the green, 5 days a week in the yellow. Red, they're not here, and we're doing this remote learning experience that involves electronics and some kind of, I'll say, paper product where they're doing something too. Again, that hasn't all been mapped out or decided yet, and that's still in the early stages of discussion.
So within the classroom, I just in talking with you, there have been some things that have been decided to keep kids safe. One being we're no longer going to be having like math sharing tubs where all the kids put their like glue sticks, and we had glue bottles and a container of pencils. I know that in my classroom, or in all of our classrooms, we will now have those types of containers where we have some extras already stored that will be controlled by us, but the supplies that you purchase for your student will only be your student. So if I know that our classroom, we have like 2 boxes of crayons. So if your box of crayons is going to be, or your child's box of crayons is going to be stored in a special place, and when the first box runs out, say in December, January, we'll go and get that new box from their school supply, and it will be stored with their things near them. Another thing that we've gone ahead and decided or talk about maybe the desks in the upper grades, and then maybe the purchase of new tables and
let me talk a little bit about that. One of the things that we're really building here, right? So that's part of our social distancing right now, is just taking measures. In my mind, it's a little bit of a step backwards, because we want kids learn well from each other, and teachers create an environment where there's collaboration and cooperation within the classroom where kids can learn from one another. There will be a limited amount of that occurring right now. Right now we have 2 new third grade teachers coming this year. Mrs. Shannon is going to be our math coach, and so that position opened up, and we have his new teacher's name will be Mr. Ben Vandenberg. And then we also have Mrs. Jolitz. She got married, moved away. We wish her well. And her new teacher is Mrs. Nolden. And those 2 teachers, they had desks in those rooms, or tables in their room, but we put desks back in their room right now. And so really most of all of our second and third grade rooms are going to be desk, and we envision those just being some social distancing. Our class sizes right now, one of the nice things about Humke, well, in Nakusa in general, is we have small class sizes. So right now, we're slated to have our biggest class size right now, I think, is 18 or 19 kids. And so it just worked out pretty well this year that we have smaller class sizes this next year. So we're able to social distance in within the classrooms. So what I envision is desks being a little bit more kind of like islands in the classrooms. And that's challenging from a learning standpoint, but we need to just do some measures to socially distance as much as possible. And so that's kind of what second and third grade looks like. Where we do have tables, we are going to be having these dividers. Think of parents, you'll remember those old test dividers. Well, that's what we're going to have, except they're going to be made of a plastic that are very easy to clean, and they're going to be transparent. So a kid will look through like a window across from the kid on the table, and they'll see their neighbor through a window on their desk, which is kind of goofy, but it works.
So what about, like in kindergarten, in my classroom, there were students that were sitting right next to each other like you and I are. And there really is no divider that would divide us. How did you solve that problem?
That's a good question. So in other words, like Mrs. Sprain and I are sitting together right now, we do have some tables that look like this. So in other words, across from us right now, imagine there's two other kids, and there's a divider there, and there's a divider that ends right here at the table, but now I can look over and say, hey, Mrs. Sprain, and I'm in that situation as a kid right now. Yeah, we don't have an answer for that right now, and we are working through the challenges of figuring that out. We've had explored ideas of getting some tables, but like anything that's like, okay, furniture is pretty expensive, as we all know as adults. And at the same time, as we have been given some money through the federal government called the CARES Act, and right now we're budgeting that out right now. Is there potential for us to get tables up ahead? Yes. Have we committed to them yet? No, because we're prioritizing so many other things right now. We're trying to find the best way to be good stewards of the money that we have been given through the grant that we've gotten through the federal government. So we're working through that right now, but it's something we can definitely still consider.
Okay.
Looks like we have a question from Mrs. Lambert. Can you scroll back up to that one there?
And it's not a question, and she just says her child is looking forward to coming back to school, which is great.
Well, thank you. I bet you that's Gigi. Good to see you, Gigi. And look through, we've missed a few of those questions. And thank you, Bobby Joe, for your comment too. Appreciate that. Mrs. Wolf, that's a good question about 4K. Ooh.
Well, we just addressed that. So
Yeah.
with the kindergarten tables as well, and the shared markers and things like that. There will not be any shared supplies of any sort. Your child's supplies will always be your child's supplies. And if for some reason they run out of their supplies, we will notify you, but we as teachers have backup things so I would give, Brennan a new glue stick, and that would become his glue stick. He would go and put it in his thing, and then that would, in his little cram box, and that would become his until it is used up. So we will have backup supplies that the teachers will have control over and distribute them as needed.
Thanks. And with that, I'll add a little bit to that. One of the things we do, parents, is we assume nothing. We teach everything. So, and one of the things that we're just going to have to spend more time teaching this next year is the whole idea of getting kids familiar with this challenging environment without causing anxiety. And no, this is what we need to do to make sure that we're clean and that we're practicing cleanliness. And that's just a virtue that we're going to have to zoom in on a little bit more this next year and teach kids on that. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll look at some of the questions right now. Mrs. Sprain, anything on there that we haven't answered that you see?
So, it says, if my 4K student has a fever or cough, For instance, those are symptoms of COVID. Would or should my first grader then need to stay home too? Any changes to the amount of absentee days? Right now we allow students to have a certain number of absentee days before.
Right. You know, number one, we're going to always trust you. Ultimately, you as a parent are in charge of your child and their education. We're here to partner with you to prepare them for their future. And so as I look at it right now, if you decide, hey, my 4K student has these symptoms and they might be positive, it's your decision. It's always going to be your decision.
But we again will be taking measures at school every single day, with like temperature, things like that, to ensure, well, to do our best to make sure that the children that enter our school are healthy. But yeah, that would, as you're saying, have to be your call.
Yeah, it's going to be your decision. In terms of the absentee days, hey, it is what it is. You know, right now, we would obviously love to have your child here every day, and but at the same time, safety trumps everything. And if that means missing school, that's what we got to do. And then what ends up happening is we will partner with you to make sure that your child gets the learning they need. Obviously, we know last year, learning remotely in the situation we are in was less than ideal. And we know that kids, when they come back, they are going to have gaps. And one of the things that we're as a teaching team that we've been reflecting on is, okay, we know kids didn't get this skill last year. We have to, when the time is gone, it's gone. And so what we need to do is figure out now, how do we figure that out to do that? We're going to meet kids where they're at and get them the things that we need to know and do the best we can to service those kids after missing that education piece from last spring.
Okay, so what if they get their temperature checked at school and has a fever? Will they be allowed in the building while they wait for their parent?
Absolutely. We're going to keep them here and safe. And that's where it's going to be.
Talk about but there will be a special room.
Right. We haven't, like I said, worked out the whole process by, okay, well, you've been tagged, but we don't know if it's the flu or it's, the coronavirus or whatever else. So right now, that's a process that our health officials and our school officials are working on to figure out that out. Right now, we are going to have a room. It's actually going to be my office, which is kind of fun. So this will be the isolation room. So in other words, what will happen is, because it's right next to the secretaries, and they will be able to keep an eye on our kids right here and make sure that they're safe. And then we have a sick room that's going to be across the hall room right now. It's the same old one we have. So we are going to monitor those things. We haven't totally finished our protocol for differentiating between, okay, you might be symptomatic or you might just, be sick. So that's stuff that we have to work out yet.
So we do have some families out there that are living with parents or relatives that are very immune compromised at this moment, and they are concerned about sending their children to school, especially in the first few weeks. Will they be facing truancy, or do they need to try and find a different means of
good question. You know what?
Teacher?
Yeah, so in other words, we're really concerned because this member of our household, we have some, I'll say, health conditions that might cause us to want to do something different. I get that. And that's where, again, we'll partner with you in whatever that looks like. Like, all right, I'm going to need to keep my child home for a while. And that's where we're looking to, work with you and whatever that looks like. So we're going to be flexible and help figure that out right now, case by case. And if it's kind of like, okay, based on the decision you're making, we're going to recommend you do this. Or, okay, with you doing this, let's do this. And that's, so as much as we want to say, oh, here's what we do, specifically for this situation and this situation, It's just going to need to be some adaptability and flexibility as we figure out the needs of helping kids learn and supporting families.
And just, again, remember that we too will be putting measures in place at the very beginning of the school year to prepare for situations just like that. Seesaw is an amazing platform that can be used virtually, but can also be used right in the classroom. And we plan on teaching from that platform in different areas of our subject areas, so that if there is a student that needs to stay at home, or if we do go virtual, your child will already be
Familiar with the platform.
familiar with that. Now, if you're concerned about keeping your child home right from the start because of a situation that you have, I would just encourage you to talk to your child's teacher and create a plan with them.
Yeah, and we know it's still a month away from school,
Yeah.
and you have time to just kind of just check your check things and see where we're at. And no decisions have to be made right now. Our goal is to be flexible and adaptable to what your needs are as a family and what that looks like.
Well,
Mrs. Rainbow?
yeah, somebody was asking again if the child was going to, if children are going to be expected to wear masks.
We're going to create it. The question is, are we going to? Yeah, do we need to wear masks all the time? That's the question that I hear right now. We are creating a culture where we're going to be wearing masks at school. In our green tier, it says encouraged, but we're going to create a practice right now where we wear masks all the time. But now let's throw in the situation. This kid has a sensitivity issue, and they have a hard time. We're going to extend grace in that situation and figure it out. So know this, there's going to be room for flexibility in that, but at the same time, all the adults in the building are wearing masks. And at the same time, we're going to also work on having shields, but face shields and what that looks like too. And we're waiting for more direction from the health department and really to figure out if it's one or the other or both. So at this point right now, we envision students wearing masks, and at the same time, I guess, the reason we look at that is because we're going to teach everybody to be masked, and we're going to keep each other safe. So that's the whole thinking behind it, because it just seems kind of wishy-washy. Well, you can wear it if you want to. No, we're just going to wear masks. Okay, I could see you're struggling right now. You're not ready to wear a mask right now. Okay, we'll be here when you're ready. That's kind of the approach.
So if the face mask causes discomfort, can they wear a face shield instead?
That's a good question, and at this point right now, we would say yes.
And then the question was, will they be laundered at school? The face masks? Yes.
Yeah. One of the questions that somebody brought up in our team discussion is like, ooh, what if they're allergic to our soap? Well, inevitably there will be a situation where that might be the case, and we'll work out those conditions one by one right now. But otherwise, yeah, we're going to wash all the masks at school. Just to make sure that every kid has their mask here every day at school, and there's a process by which there's always fresh masks.
Yeah. All right. So far, we think we've covered all the questions that you've asked.
Did you scroll down and see? I saw Erica had a question on there.
If we missed you, please
Right there.
resubmit.
Okay, yeah, we got that one.
Yeah, please resubmit your question because we may have accidentally missed it. All right.
Honestly, I walk around the building every day, and it's lonely. It is lonely. And
It's been lonely for a long time.
It's been lonely, and we are eager to have your kids back here at school. And know this, we really want to serve you and make sure that they're safe. But
we look forward to seeing their faces again.
we look forward to having them here at school, and just know that. And we're going to partner with you to make sure that your child is safe here at school, and make sure that they learn too. So, all right. Any new questions come in, Mrs. Sprain?
Yeah, that's a good statement. Somebody said learning to read in a mask can be very hard, and I agree. They do sell masks that have a clear shield here, and I think as a teacher that's very important, and as a student I can see that as being important. So I know that I'm going to have a mask that might have a window so that they can see me making the different letter sounds. And I will be asking the student to copy them. If for some reason I can see or hear that they're making the wrong sound, we'll have to make adjustments so that I can see and teach them their lip movement. But it is definitely an added challenge to not be able to see your face when teaching children to read.
Oh, good. Miss Tiffany asked a great question. And so did Mrs. Cloud. She asked a good question. Let me start with Mrs. Cloud's. Her question is: any hand sanitizing during the day? Well, believe it or not, we're always hand sanitizing. Right now, teachers are excellent. Hey, we have bathroom breaks. You go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. We go to lunch, we wash our hands. We're just going to double down on that in the classroom. What I envision is, like, again, at the start of the day, kids come into the building. We do all that screening at the start, and part of that is a sanitizing process too, where kids are
using hand sanitizer. Yeah. We will be learning to wash our hands and using that practice, but we also will be using hand sanitizer frequently throughout the day.
Yep. So that's what that looks like. Miss Tiffany asked, what recess, lunchtime? Again, I'll highlight lunchtime right now. I talked a little bit about this earlier, but essentially our lunchroom is going to be at half capacity, and I didn't expand on this earlier, but what it'll look like is, imagine instead of having 20 kids at a table, we have 9, and they're not sitting across from each other. They're kind of in a staggered across. And then what will happen is we'll have some homerooms will be assigned to eat in their classroom as opposed to the lunchroom. So that's what we're doing to try to minimize that presence. From a recess, we have not talked about this yet. What would recess look like?
A little bit.
A little bit, but the goal really is to keep, I'm going to say, the classroom cohorts together. So in other words, Mrs. Sprain's class, you guys are together the whole day, and we're isolating you. That's part of the social distancing. There's social distancing in the classroom, and there's social distancing within our community. So what ends up happening is her kids are together all the time, okay? That's what we're really working on trying to do, and create processes where we're not commingling with other classrooms in the same grade. That's just what it is. Now, when we go outside, we've talked about it, but we haven't finalized things. And this is a little tough because, okay, these are kids. I'm not sure how we're going to get this to work yet. But when I would say, okay, you kids right here, you get to be on the blacktop. You guys get to be in the bark. You guys get to be in the grass. You guys get to be... And so what happens is then there's some kind of rotation in which, so really the kids are playing more with their classroom cohort and not necessarily with the whole grade. And that's kind of tough, and it's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's the things that we need to do to practice that social distancing to keep people safe. We have to map that out yet, but we haven't totally figured that out yet. Okay.
Are there any other questions? We will keep watching here. Nonetheless, I just appreciate all of the thought that so many of you have put into your questions, and just continues to cause us as a school to think about what we need to do to make sure that everybody feels comfortable and safe here at Humke.
Yep. We will be doing this again next week at 6:30.
On Monday.
On Monday night at 6:30, we're going to do the same thing again. So as you sit around and you think, hey, what about this? Write that question down. You can send it to, we can talk about it next Monday night. and or again that Parent Square message that I sent out, you can shoot me a message directly, and I'd be happy to respond to you individually too.
All right.
And thank you for your time. I'm thinking, is this it, Mrs. Spray?
This might be it.
I don't see any new questions coming in, but again, you guys have been awesome, and it's a pleasure serving you and the community of Nakusa, and we don't take it for granted. And you choosing Humke, so thank you.
Yes.
We look forward to serving you and working with you and everything that's to come. So with that, we wish you well and good night, Humke.
Yes. Good night.